Pacific Viewpoint is proudly brought to you by South Pacific Loans, caring for the community's financial needs. Call us today on 0800 88 98 88.
Good evening and welcome to Pacific Viewpoint. Ideological, social and political forces have been working to reduce racial discrimination and to create more equal relationships among racial and ethnic groups. Marriage is often viewed as the last barrier to racial integration, making intermarriage a critical indicator and challenge of intergroup relationships. With the current trends of globalization and the advancement of technology and transport, more and more people are seeking better futures in foreign countries, opening the door for high rates of cross-cultural marriage. Most would probably agree, marriage in general poses many challenges, and cross-cultural marriages are no exception. Cultural values, traditions, religion and raising children are but a few issues amplified by these marriages, and Pacific peoples are not exempt. In the studio tonight, we have such a couple who have taken on the challenges of a cross-cultural marriage and are here to share their experience. Luka and Joe, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, please tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I'm a New Zealand-born Samoan, and I'm a pastor at church. And I come from a family of 5. I'm the youngest of 3. And I was born in Wellington, and now I live in Auckland.
I was born in Christchurch, and then my parents moved to Auckland when I was 6 years old, so mostly raised in South Auckland. And my parents have 4 children of their own, and we also had foster children when I was a child, so we used to have extra boys living in our home. And I am second oldest in my family, boy, girl. And now, well, when I got married, moved to West Auckland, so that was a bit of a change for me, having grown up mostly in South Auckland, and now we're back in South Auckland. So.
Where and how did you meet?
Well, I was at a Bible college, and
of New Zealand?
At AUG Bible College,
right.
And my best friend was flatting with Joe, and so every time I call him, Joe will be on the phone trying to find my details and find out who I was, and
You're joking.
So
He is joking.
so yeah, and so it was from there we actually met, from Joe running a flat, and yeah. So.
It was because my parents moved to Germany at that time for my dad's job, so I lived in a flat. I had a mixed flat of guys and girls, and Luka's best mate was actually European, and so he was in my flat, and Luke used to ring him, and we used to tease him about, that's your wife on the phone, you see, because they used to talk all the time. And I didn't know he was Samoan until I actually physically face-to-face met him, because he was very polite and well-mannered on the phone, and so I didn't actually know he was Samoan until later. Yeah.
So was it love at first, or was it something that was stirred up for quite some time?
I think for Joe it was love at first sight, just running after me all the time, and I was concentrating on studies and everything. So when I first met Joe, it was for me, because I thought she's a stunning woman, and also because she was in a church setting, and she had the same passion that I have, and for our beliefs. So yeah, I was quite taken back.
I think for me, I met Luka, and it was probably a little while later that I realised that he quite liked me, and then I kind of was like, oh, this is really different to what I've ever thought about, because I'd not really imagined myself going out with a Pacific Islander. So I guess a whole lot of questions came into my head before I actually thought about liking him. So it was quite a different experience for me, yeah. And when he was at Bible College, I was at Teachers College. So, we were both studying and quite busy lives. So, initially it was just every now and then just a hi and how you doing, and yeah. How
long before you realised Luka will be your future husband?
Well, we went on a date about November.
She asked me on a date.
He always says that. But we went on a date, went out with some friends, and then we just went out and we just talked and shared. And I think even just that day, I just felt a real peace about Luka. Like, you know, potentially this guy's got a really genuine heart, and I really felt that maybe he could be the right one. And then we didn't see each other for 8 weeks. I had gone overseas to see my parents in Germany, and Luka was away. And over that time, we talked a lot on the telephone. And even my mum at that time, she was like, do you think there's more to this? Do you think this could be the one? So even my mum at that time, I think, picked up that there was something quite different about this particular relationship for me. I hadn't really had a serious boyfriend ever, and so you know, I was really looking for the right person to marry. And so when we did come back in about February and kind of went out, I was pretty sure that I was actually going to marry him pretty quickly. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, it was quite quick.
Wow, did you know that from day one?
I did. I wanted it. I pursued it. So I must admit, yeah, it's something I wanted. So.
Was it something that you two prayed about it for a long time, or?
I prayed about it for some time, and then once we knew it's the way to go, so I pursued it. So.
Yeah, I think in the February, I remember him ringing me, and this is what he said to me: "What are you doing next year?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'll be teaching. Where are you going to have a job?" I don't know. I haven't thought about that. Yeah. He was like, "Oh yeah, I was thinking we should get married."
You see how
that wasn't the proposal, but I was like, oh, okay. So that was the first discussion, and we'd probably been going out about 2 weeks. And so from there, we kind of talked about the fact that, okay, if we are going to get married, then how do we work towards that? So we didn't really kind of do a normal, let's date, get engaged. Yeah. We did a discussion in February. And then Luka proposed to me in June.
June.
And then we got married the following January before I did start teaching. So altogether, our time of dating was only a year.
So did you like the way he approached it? Did you like that?
Well, no, I was quite happy with that because I was pretty sure that he was the right person. And in some ways, knowing early on meant that some of the challenges in our relationship were easier to go, okay, if this is the guy I'm going to marry, we've got to work it through. Because if we'd just been dating and kind of going, oh, maybe, maybe not, I don't know that we would have gone into marriage, because some of those things came up before we were married rather than once we were married, and obviously more came up once we were married.
Right.
But knowing that I really felt that God had given me him as a potential husband meant that we were able to work through quite a lot just in our time of courting, and once we were engaged, it was we've got to work this out. We've got to sort out these things that are quite different. Yeah.
How about you, Luka?
Well, I was about 29, so
28.
I was 28, so at that time. So I thought, well, why wait around any longer? So I knew in my heart that Joe was the right one, and so also I saw that she had a big house, so palangi's got a lot of money. So here we go. So that was it.
Fair day.
So Samoan way.
Samoan styles.
I'm glad my husband told me that he didn't have any money, so
when I met her parents, I knew he's got a lot of money, so God had answered my prayers.
Okay, so coming to your parents, how did your parents react to the fact that you're going to marry somebody from outside Samoan culture?
My dad was upset and my mum was very angry. So when I told
is that another joke?
So no, they were quite upset. Yeah, very upset. Like really upset. And they actually told some folks, we were at a conference and my mum was so upset, she told everyone I never wanted my son to marry a palangi.
Well,
and my wife was right there, but she said it in Samoan, so Joe didn't understand a word. So and then Joe was asking, what's mum saying?
I was smiling. What's your mum saying? He goes, I'll tell you later.
I said, nothing, it's great. Because the Samoans, they've always wanted us to marry someone within our culture. I think it's one it's understandable. And for them to see me marry a palangi, I think it was a challenge for them.
Is there a fear of losing the culture?
I think there's a fear of losing not just the culture, but losing me into another culture. They knew it was going to be hard work to have Joe as a European into our home, because then you have to speak European or they don't understand how we function. So I think there was so much in there that I think they were a bit worried.
So how did you handle that?
That's a good question. We just had to give them time, and we had to work things through carefully because, I mean, I love my parents, especially my mum. So for her to transition this, we had to just pray it through, talk a lot, and sometimes I had to actually make a decision. No, this is what we're going to do as a family. So basically, Joe and I had to make a decision as a family. This is what we're going to decide the best for us. So that didn't go too well.
Yeah. And how about you, Joe?
My parents were all right about it. They didn't get to meet Luka until the day that we went for dinner, and he had to ask them about marrying me, which was a little bit awkward for the poor guy. He was as nervous as...
They took me to this Flash restaurant, and I've never been to a Flash restaurant before. So, you know, I'm looking around and everything, so, but it was good.
Yeah.
So
but they were good.
You asked her parents first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Before you asked her?
Kind of. We already knew we were going to get married, but I just had to ask them for their blessing.
Yeah, before we were officially engaged, he did ask them. Okay. Yeah. I think my parents, having had lots of cross-cultural people around us in our church, in our home, it didn't completely surprise them. But again, I think they had sort of anticipated that I would probably marry a European because I'd been to university and teachers college, and you know, just most of my friends there were Europeans, but a whole lot of my friends in church were Polynesians, so I had a very broad spectrum of relationships anyway, and I think they were a little bit surprised, but they were really good about it. They were very welcoming.
Could they not be? I mean.
And have always kind of seen the good, looked for the good in it, which has been good, even though we've still had our challenges with things.
Did you know anything about Samoa or Samoan culture before you actually decided to marry him?
I did, but not a huge amount. I knew little bits about Samoan culture, I knew people, and I saw some of their family relationships. My perception of Samoan culture, though, was a very European one. You know, what I saw I just took as face value. I didn't know the underlying meaning of things. I didn't know a lot of the customs. I didn't know things like you go to a wedding and there's like, you know, the massive cakes. I didn't know why they had that. And I was thinking, why do they have so many layers of cake? So things like that were foreign to me. But I remember I had a very good friend, and one time I'd go up to her and I was like, how are you? Yeah. She was like, Joe, Europeans don't do that. That's like an island thing. And I was like, oh, okay. But, you know, like just because I'd sort of been around them. So in terms of relating to them as people, yes. But in terms of knowing a lot about the cultural reasons behind things to do with money, things to do with family, there was a lot of that I didn't know. I was a little bit ignorant to that, yeah.
And same to you?
Yeah, I'm probably more New Zealand than I'm Samoan. Because I was brought up in a Samoan home. We spoke Samoan at home and at church, and then you go to European school. So I mean, it was difficult for me to learn both cultures. But when you grow up in New Zealand, you do get the best of both worlds. So I was able to sometimes put on my Samoan hat and then put on my European hat. So. And I could play them both, just whatever suits me. Yeah. So palangi think, oh, this guy's real fresh airs, but they have no idea.
I can give you a funny example of our
please do. When
we were dating, Luka would not eat at my home because everyone was European, and he didn't eat in front of Europeans. And I wouldn't eat at his house because I didn't know what the food was. I was like, what is that?
She used to call corned beef cat food. Cat food. I said to her, have this, because my mum was watching. I said, eat this, because my mum's watching. Because what's that? I said, corned beef. She goes, look like cat food. And my mother was like, and like, you know, I mean, how do you build a relationship with your mother-in-law when you call it cat food?
There was a lot
and it's
of
our
stuff.
Cuisine. You know, it's our food. Top of the food.
Yeah. Food was challenging. And Luka was living with a family where all the family lived in one room, like mum, dad and 4 kids, and that just shocked me. I was like, do they really live in that room all together? How do they fit, and how do they sleep? And you know, that was very new to me just when we were going out. But I found out that was very common. So things like that were kind of new, and they were so lovely to me. They were welcoming. They always offered me food and things. But I was, oh no, thank you, because I didn't know what it was most of the time. So we used to eat out a lot.
Only for her sake, just for her sake.
Was there any time in your relationship that you kind of taken back and say, I think I have made a mistake?
Probably. Probably. I think, yeah, maybe.
Maybe for Joe, I was all right.
Maybe. I think maybe there were times, but not distinct enough to make me think, nah, I'm out of here. I think there were challenges and you know, we'd go places and everyone would be speaking Samoan and I was thinking, how am I going to deal with this, you know? And probably I need to learn how to speak Samoan. But I don't think it even put me off who Luka was, because he was so good at relating to me as a person that the cultural thing wasn't enough to go, wow, that's it, you know?
Mo lafo ina tupe Samoa ma Australia ma tonga. Piki tupe Australia ma Samoa pe tu ufo I social accounts in New Zealand nei. Whaatau tongi nei piki a mau. Whaia siaki talaina I le malaiwa lele. Talaina o mātou tupe a pia I le Nick Money Transfer. Po sa vai I le Marie Money Transfer. O le mātou tuatusi o le numera fitu Princess Street o tau. Talaina le mātou ofisa le afa le valu le taiao I le 5 I le afiafi. Asonga fua I le asfareile, ma le afa le valu le taeao o le afa sfulu le astonai. Pafsota I mai le mātou telefoni I le lua fitu o whāwalu o le lua fitu ono lua tolu whātasi. Mo nisi whamatalanga, whautai tele Samoa I laulalako mai.
I came from Tonga in 2006. I need a future here with my family. I decided to buy a house. I went to the bank and they turned me down. So I went to South Pacific Loan and they decided to give me a second chance. So they upgrade my credit and then I went back to the bank and they offered me a loan. And then I buy this house and here I am today. I highly recommend anyone who haven't tried South Pacific Loan, try South Pacific Loan because they give me a chance to be here with my house today.
Give us a call or come and see us because we understand the Pacific people.
What kind of wedding did you envisage?
Me?
Yeah, was it a problem or?
Actually, I was real keen on having quite a big wedding. Anyway, I mean, I just wanted to have all my friends and family there and, you know, wear the pretty dress and have my bridesmaids.
You wanted to celebrate it in a palangi way or Samoan?
Yeah, well, you see, I probably didn't know there was a difference too much before I got married. I didn't realise what a difference there was until we were talking about the wedding. And then I was like, oh, okay. So we start talking about the wedding and I'm like, you know, okay, so where should we get married and where should we have a reception? Because my parents were going to pay for the reception. And Luka's like, you know, Samoan style is you get a hall and everyone comes. And I was like, well, how many people is that? Oh, maybe 500 to 1,000. I was like, who's going to come?
And also, my parents were ministers. So you got to appreciate that.
Absolutely.
There's a lot in there, yeah. So to say no to my uncles and aunties because of the numbers, oh, no way. So, yeah, that was a challenge.
So, open policy.
Open policy.
That was a shock, actually. And it was a real shock to my parents that this is a potential, you know, their first child getting married. So, actually, Luka really, he gave a lot of leeway to my family, a lot more than the other way. Yeah.
And how was your side of family deal with that differences?
Not happy. My mum and dad were angry. My uncles and aunties, they were just like, they couldn't believe that I'd kind of side to the palangi side. So there were some challenging times, But you handle it really well. Well,
for you two to be together up now. You know?
I mean, it was a lot of praying time, but there was a lot of, I just had to communicate with my mum and dad all the time. And for them not to have 1,000 people at their son's wedding, and they're ministers, and not have this done, and, you know, the Samoan styles of giving things and food was, but you just had to, you just had to pray that God
was it a
wisdom.
letdown, a feeling of letdown in your culture?
Yeah, big time, yeah. I mean, we had over 400 people at our wedding, so it's not like that was half of the 1,000, but then we had worship and then we had praying and we had we had Bible reading in Samoan and in European, so we try to mix it as much as possible. But
Samoan church?
In the Samoan church, and my mum cried the whole time.
Yeah.
look at me like, because her baby's marrying to...
She sat on the front row and cried.
moi.
Just couldn't look at her. Yeah.
Is it happy crying or?
I'm like, what's going on? What are you doing?
My son.
My son. My precious stone.
It was a bit like that. But I think for my family, that it was a great experience because none of them, my mum is actually Australian, so most of them have never really, most of my extended family had never really engaged with Samoan culture at all.
We had a 30-piece choir.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, we had a Samoan dancer. There was like a worship dance.
Yeah.
We really put it on.
Yeah, we wrote a song.
We wrote a song for our wedding, so we try and put everything together that mixed both of us. But I think for my parents, I think it was more than that. It was just
it was more that they to insult people.
They didn't want to insult other pastors that could have been there, and I understood. It was a challenging time.
How about the two of you then? What did you do to keep everything together?
I didn't tell her anything.
Yeah, I didn't realise how much was going on.
Yeah, I just
dealt with
I just had to, I knew it's one of those things, I just had to deal with it and take the pressure off Joe. And so she had no idea what was going on.
All right. Had you know about all these things, do you think they would probably change your mind?
I think it was pretty hard to change because we had no money. So we were relying on our parents, right? And being European, the family, my parents were paying for the reception and they were willing to do that. I think it's very hard to change that because they were going to say, okay, this is the numbers at the reception. So the numbers at the reception were 160, which is big for a European catered dinner. And so they were quite accommodating and sort of like going from 120 up to 160 and being agreeable to pay for that was quite a big deal. Luka's family, on the other hand, they had much more sacrifice. They put on a massive afternoon tea for all the people that came to the church, so we were able to have more people at the church, but just less at the reception. And I think it would have been nice to say I would change it, but it's hard to know because I just was so unaware of what was expected because I hadn't been to enough island weddings until later that I could see, oh man, ours was so different. Yet I think we did a good job of combining our cultures in our service and celebrating who we both were, having a bit of Samoan singing. My dad wanted a hymn. I said, only if we sing it in English and Samoan. He was like, okay, so we kind of had to work that. But I think in terms of the celebration, in the service, we had a real unity.
Yeah, great time.
Real unity.
And I think that's the God factor.
Stuff.
Yeah. That's what God put together.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for the God factor, I think you would have... Disaster.
Yeah, it could have been
real
pretty
disaster.
Awful.
Even our marriage would be disaster.
Yeah.
So, God, the glue,
Yeah.
So that is your common factor.
It is.
Oh, yes.
It
yes.
is.
The only factor.
Did you talk about having kids before you married or after the wedding?
We did talk about it before.
We talked it before, and I wanted one child.
Yeah, and how many do you have now?
3. I got tricked into having 3 kids.
That is another show.
We were going to have one. He said one. I said, no way. I've got to have more than one. I loved coming from a family of 4, and I was quite happy to have 4 children. And we both liked the name Micah. That was one of our favourite names. So hence why, when I was first pregnant, we were pretty sure we were going to have a boy and call him Micah. And we ended up with 2 girls. And at that point, we were thinking, maybe we wouldn't have another one. And we ended up...
No, she was.
He was like, we might get another girl,
No money.
But we ended up with a boy, and he is called Micah. So I guess that one thread has run from before we were married.
And also, it's funny because my parents, even though, they really loved Joe, it wasn't really till the kids came that it was this bond. It's like the huge change.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, princess.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when the kids came, that was it.
Yeah, they were very different towards me once I'd had children.
And I've got a brother and sister who got kids, and they'll smack their kids and not touch ours. And they'll say to me, well, you don't touch your kids because they're palangi kids. I'm like, Dad, I'm Samoan. And they're like, no, don't touch the children.
Spoil them, no.
Spoil them all the time. So when we had 2 girls, my dad said to me, Samoan culture, we must have a son. And I was like, that's nice. You go adopt one. But then when this boy came, mate, that was it.
Favourite. And even in the hospital, after I'd had a son, he says, you know, Joe, family not complete till you have two. I was like, I think we're going to stop there, Dad. One son's good.
How come that is different? Because a lot of Pacific Island men, they want more kids. You just wanted one.
Why?
How come?
Because I knew it cost a lot of money. So,
So you started to think like a palangi?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that?
He was scared of being a dad.
I'm trained by an Indian as well, so he got the best of both worlds, palangi and Indian. Yeah, I think...
you were serious when you said
I
one.
was very serious, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted one child and that was it. Yeah, because in some ways I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be a good dad.
That was a big deal.
That was a big deal for me.
Why? You seem to be a nice guy.
Thank you. You're supposed to be saying yes, Dad. I had left home at a very early age. So I left home when I was 12. So, you know, you get around and when you have a family, you think, what can I offer this child? I can only give them so much. And if you have more than that, you know, have I got enough to really, you know, give your best? So there was a lot of questions, yeah.
Coming back to the first day of your marriage, was it difficult?
It was for Joe, not for me. I was fine.
What did you find difficult,
I
Joe?
found that Luka as a person was very hard. And I say hard because he's very like, this is the way we're going to do it. And, you know, I'll give you an example. You don't answer back to the man.
Samoan way?
Yeah. So the man tells you what to do and you don't say anything. In my family, you discuss things and then you come to an agreement. So he'd tell me what to do and I'd say, no, I'm going to do it like this. And he'd be like, no, you don't do it like that. You don't answer me back. You do it my way. And I was like, no, I don't. So things like that were kind of
The Bible is very clear, eh? You must submit. Submit to the husband. It's not palangi culture, it's the Bible culture.
Yeah.
So you called it hard?
I saw him as hard and tough. And I think I was a bit too sensitive. I'd been, you know... Not spoiled, but I had been a very responsible, well-behaved child. I never got into trouble too much. And so him telling me off, I felt like I was a naughty child. And so it was almost like, hang on, I haven't been naughty. I'm just different to what, you know. So we had a lot of...
Yeah, there is no right or wrong.
There is no right or wrong. It's just
I had to strengthen
yeah.
and he had to soften. And it was a good thing that we waited, you know, 2.5 years before we had children, because by then we had a bit more balance. Because he'd learnt how sensitive I was and I'd learnt to toughen up a little bit. And in that process, we learnt how to communicate better, because ultimately it mainly came to communication, the way we communicated.
So to solve that problem, you learn how to communicate better.
Yes.
Well, we attended several marriage courses.
All right. Okay.
And that really helped us, eh?
Yeah.
And also, I went and got some mentors who taught me how to be a good husband, how to be a listener. Because I wanted to build my marriage, and so you can only be what you're modelled. Yeah. So when I got these models around me, they were great. They were great men, yeah. And if you've seen their wives, they were beautiful, they were well dressed, and they were happy. And because of that, I knew their husbands are doing something right. So I targeted these guys and said, listen, you need to teach me. What can I do? And so it was a journey.
Well, that's all we have time for on tonight's program. Stay tuned next week as we continue this discussion with Luka and Joe. Until then, bye for now.
I was learning a whole lot of things about Samoan culture, and I was like, why do you do that? That, you know, I don't agree with that. And he was like, well, we're just going to do it. And I was like, well, hang on, what if I don't agree?